2023, have roll call, Ms. Wilbur.
Inline. Here. Kennedy.
Here.
Wampler.
Here.
Shields.
Here.
Simpson's absent. Brandon.
Here.
Everyone, please stand and remain standing for the pledge or invocation of now be given by Pastor David Smith of the First Church of the Nazarene. And our pledge of allegiance will be led by group Girl Scout Troop 20889. If everyone will please remain standing after the invocation. About that.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege we have to live in this city. Thank you for all the prosperity, all the good, all the peace, all those who serve. We're grateful for the privilege of living in this place. And we ask for your continued blessing on this city, on every one of these council members, on our mayor, and all who look after us and protect us and keep us safe. Lord, we ask and pray for these things in Jesus' name.
Amen. Girls?
Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we owe them a big hand. Good job, girls. Thank y'all. There's not any changes to the previous minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
Make a motion.
Motion by Vice Mayor, do I have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, motion by Mr. Brendan, second by the Vice Mayor, Mr. Wilbur.
Got it.
Discussion, roll call.
Inline. Aye. Kennedy.
Aye.
Wampler.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Simpson's absent. Brandon.
Aye.
All right, I want to thank everyone for coming, and I know we have some visitors here with us that wants to speak, and I want to first recognize some county officials that's here with us. The Honorable Mayor Buddy Bradshaw, County Mayor, is here with us. Thank you, Mayor. Along with County Commissioners William Jenkins of the 2nd District, Rosemary Quillen of the 2nd District, Chase Randolph of the 1st District, Henry Cullen, the Chairman of Loudoun County Commission, the 7th District, Van Shaver, and Joe Morrison of the 5th District. Thank y'all for coming, appreciate that. All right, at this time, is there anyone here that has signed up that would like to talk about something on tonight's agenda? If you will, Ms. Barber, if you'll tell us the first person.
Rio Valerian. I don't know if I said that correctly.
I think everybody has control to pronounce it.
Yeah, I've heard worse.
Well,
Thank you, Brad.
thank you, sir.
So I'm curious, at a show of hands, all those that are against the annexation, how many? Thank you. My name is Rio Valeriano. I live at 680 Highway 70 West, and just west of the 25 acres that Lenoir City has allegedly annexed into Lenoir City, Tennessee. I'm here in opposition of this annexation for the following reasons. Based on the interlocal agreement that was codified by Loudoun County and Lenoir City on November 24th, 2003, due to, once again, Lenoir City making an uncontrolled land grab of properties in Loudoun County. Known as Resolution and Interlocal Agreement number 2005-4-11-1678A by Lenoir City and number 040405-A by Loudoun County, adjudicated in Chancery Court of Loudoun County, Tennessee, Civil Action number 10456. Term and Condition 5 states that any parcel, in this case Mr. Smith's 25 acres, that is clearly outside the urban and plain growth boundaries must be received in writing by said owner to Loudoun County first, and then secondarily approved by Lenoir City Council in order to be annexed. Section 6-58-118 in the state code, it states the tract is contiguous to a tract of land that has the same owner and has already been annexed by the municipality, in this case Lenoir City. It doesn't say either or. It's crystal clear that it must meet both. The reason I bought where I bought was because I knew I was protected from irresponsible urban sprawl. I knew that the current infrastructure in the particular sewer was years behind in the capacity to handle future land grabs by Lenoir City without investing millions to handle the demand for low-income housing. I knew that for me to free-range cattle, I needed to avoid areas where urban sprawl and high-density residential entitlements did exist. Since I purchased my farm, Mike Ross and Travis Fuller bought the Ross farm directly behind me and have the ability to build upwards of 600 plus affordable homes. And inconceivably, if this passes, Mr. Smith will be granted up to 18 DUs per acre, or adding another 450 dwellings with a road or access to Highway 70 required, which clearly creates all sorts of issues with the maintenance of traffic onto Highway 70 and the Blue Line Creek that traverses his land and mine. How did Lenoir City annex this tract without following legal protocol? How was Loudoun County not afforded the respect and legal courtesy to exercise their rights under this resolution and state law? How did Lenoir City get away without a proper public hearing and not violate Sunshine Law? Advertising on the smut sheets, I doubt, constitutes proper notice. In closing, I'm here to ask for our collective voices to be heard and, more importantly, to protect us. If Lenoir City gets away with this, it opens up Pandora's box to no resident, no subdivision, Loudoun County being safe or protected from future uncontrolled land grabs by Lenoir City. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Who's next, Bob?
Tim Purcell.
Mr. Purcell.
Good evening, folks.
Dean.
I'll share with you what I shared with Loudoun County and be a little edited this evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I do appreciate it. My name is Tim Purcell. My wife Tammy's standing there at the back, and my daughter Taylor's with us this evening as well. We're transplanted New Yorkers here in Loudoun County. We love it, so don't hold that against us whenever we're going back. Been here over 25 years, and this is home. And we live on the opposite side of the W&W track, just opposite of Rio. You can throw a rock over and hit his house from mine. We own the 44-acre horse ranch that's right next door called Red Heaven Ranch. And I think the decision to annex that has put Loudoun County in a very difficult position. And it's put me here this evening to talk to you about why that happened and what we can do to reverse that decision. We believe it was illegal, and we think that it's a little bit ironic that the interlocal agreement that was established just, 5, 6, 7 years ago to address this situation seems to have been ignored in this respect for this annexation. For context, our horse ranch is more than just horses. We live there as well. I talked about Taylor, who runs the farm on our behalf. As you heard a moment ago from Rio, his 50-acre cattle farm is on the opposite side. But his land use and his overall feel is just about the same. It's a beautiful house tucked into the woods. It's quiet, grazing pastures. As you'd expect, it's really nice. The land around us is country, as it should be. The peaceful setting is perfect for the raising and care of horses. If you've been around horses, you know they can be easily spooked, and they require a calm, relatively distraction-free environment. High-density housing built onto a toothpick-wide strip of land is not peaceful. It's loud, it's bright, and it brings with it a significant transfer of liability to myself and to Rio and others, with unattended children or teenagers or homeowners walking around and deciding to engage unlawfully or otherwise with cattle and livestock. I think there's a very good reason to have a UGB in the existing governing interlocal agreement to keep high-density housing away from 1,300-pound horses, 2,000-pound cattle, electric fences, heavy farm equipment, and barbed wire. Ladies and gentlemen, we farm and we ranch. It's demanding work, but it's the work and the life that we love. Introducing hundreds of apartments, homes, or people onto land that it was not intended for does not make sense. And I'll close with the obvious. I'm 100% against the annexation, and I'm asking you this evening to reverse that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purcell. Who's next, Bob?
Barry Hugh.
Hugh,
Uh-huh.
Mr. Hugh.
Howdy.
How are you, Mr. Hugh?
Yeah, remember it from your last
We
meeting.
do.
We do.
Well, I was walking the Greenway. Remember we had the windstorm a few days ago? And if you're heavier parts and playgrounds here, you might recognize a live tree decided to fall. And when it did, I was exactly 5 steps from it. And my concern is, like I mentioned 2 weeks ago, that there needs to be some forestry on Greenway. Because not only is it a fire hazard, because of all the dead branches and stuff, but it's also very dangerous. You know, I could have been hit. And if you look, if you have taken away, you look at it, it's quite large. Quite large. So I hope that we can continue our dialogue and about the Town Creek Greenway. And hopefully we can get some good positive improvements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh.
Thank you, thank you.
And as I said at the last meeting, the city received a $600,000 grant. We're currently working on that, so I'm hearing what you're saying, okay?
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank you.
we'll, the tree, we'll do it with the tree.
Thank you. Anyone else, Levon?
Yes, Jim Calloway.
Mr. Callaway?
Good evening.
Dave?
Good to see you again. Was here 2 weeks ago and spoke with you about issues that are surrounding the Greenbelt. It basically piggybacks on what Mr. Hugh was just talking about. Last week we talked about, and as you just mentioned, the additional monies, the monies that the city has available for parks and recreation, portion of it at least.
It's actually for
City.
stormwater, but go ahead.
The stream bank stabilization.
Yes.
Thank you. And as well as the potential for grants, we spoke briefly about that.
Yeah,
and how
which we
can
put in
pursue
for.
those things.
Mhm.
And yes, I understand that that's a considerable sized budget for the whole of the process. But what we're interested in is what the city's actual plans are for those activities and what kind of schedule there is for those activities. You mentioned then that you have a very small staff available in Parks and Rec to do the maintenance of the Greenway. But looking at what this is going to take to address the many issues surrounding the park, we'd like to see the actual plan that the city's put together for utilization of those monies and the improvements around the Greenway. How do we find that information and be involved in that process? It's really where we're trying to get to.
Ms. Kelso?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for coming out tonight, Mr. Callaway. In looking at the, few issues that we discussed last time, one being the stream bank stabilization, the other being the trees and branches that have fallen in the creeks, just to name a couple of items. We will obviously have to have an engineer, to come out and to redesign the slope of that stream bank, to tell us how to design it in such a way that it will no longer erode. There's been talk of gabion baskets, things of that nature. So it would not just be our four-man crew that we have in Parks and Rec that would do that work. They would obviously help, but we would have engineers and contractors that we would, be dealing with on that.
I understand that,
Yeah.
the process for getting this work done. I know it's not a small undertaking. As I mentioned before, that's a major tributary for the city as far as drainage is
Right.
concerned. And
Right,
of course, weather is going to have an ongoing impact on anything we're trying to do.
yes,
But as I said, I'm looking at what the plans are, what the schedules are, how we can see and understand what
right.
is actually being done
So
to
on,
achieve those
on the
goals.
stream bank stabilization, just to let you know, we have gone through the pre-application process. We've been awarded, they make you go through a workshop, which was about a 3-hour workshop virtually. And then after that, they'll give us notice to proceed to do a request for qualifications for engineering for that. And then we'll be able to go out to bids for a contractor as well. So it's a multi-step process versus if we were to do it ourselves, it would take a shorter time, but we don't have the funds for that. Now, the LPRF grant that we spoke about last time, we're making application for that, and we do have plans, to potentially upgrade lighting at the sports complex that's about 40 years old now. And so that's our plan for that, but we're not guaranteed those funds yet. We just now went through the,
And that sports complex is a really nice facility too.
right, it
It has gotten
services a lot of.
attention because it gets a lot of
Mhm.
views.
Yes,
But
yes,
as you can see, the soccer fields and the Greenway parks are getting more and more use. Youth soccer leagues utilize those fields
Mhm.
that are often wetted because of the lack of sufficient drainage
Mhm.
in those areas. And those are the kinds of things we're
Right.
looking at,
yes, sir,
when and how we can address those
yes,
issues.
sir, yes, sir,
We're looking also, which we talked about there, is the bank, predominantly the bank stabilization activities.
Mhm.
But we're looking at longer-term maintenance and enhancement of the project. We're looking at potentially requesting the city's support for public support and public participation in raising funds to improve areas of the park. And we'd like to solicit the city's support for our efforts.
Mhm.
So that's a part of that.
I would like to get him with Zach Cusick, on that part of it.
We'll contact you, Mr. Callaway, we appreciate it, okay?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else, Levon? All right, first item on the agenda is consideration of city council regarding the closure of Broadway from Kingston Street to C Street for spring clean event on Saturday, April the 22nd, 2023, with a closure from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Mr. Rodney Gregan of the Loudoun County Chamber of Commerce is with us. Rodney?
Mayor, City Council, this will be one of our events for the Historic Downtown Arts Association Council of the Chamber. It's nothing that we haven't done in the past.
Okay. Any questions? Got a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Wonker, do I have a second? Second. Second by the vice mayor, discussion, roll call.
Inline, aye. Kennedy. Aye. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields. Simpson's absent. Brandon.
Item number 3 is consideration of city council regarding closure, item number 2 is consideration of city council regarding closure of Broadway from Kingston Street to C Street for Nights on Broadway event on Friday, May the 19th, with a closure from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Rodney?
Mr. Mayor, again, an event that will be repeating itself from previous years. Nothing has changed with that event at all.
And I know you'll get with the police department,
Yes, sir. Give it them
work with them
and street
and the street department as well. All right, discussion? Got a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Brandon, second by the vice mayor. Mr. Wilbur,
Got it.
roll call.
Inline. Yes. Kennedy. Aye. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields. Simpson's absent. Brandon.
And let me say that Mr. Simpson had a planned vacation, so the reason he's not here with us tonight. Item number 3 is consideration of city council regarding closure of Broadway from Kingston Street to C Street for Nights on Broadway event on Friday, June the 16th, 2023, with closure from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Again, Mr. Mayor, same event as we had last year. Nothing's changed on that. We're doing all 3 of these at the same time, so you don't have to look at me again for the rest of the year.
All right.
We don't have to look at
You do a good job, we appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Discussion? Got a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Henline, have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Brandon. Roll call, Mr. Wood.
Inline. Yes. Kennedy. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Simpson's absent. Brandon.
Item 4 is consideration of mayor's appointment, Mr. Chris Walford to the Industrial Development Bond Board. We had a opening due to, one of the, people there that is not able to serve any longer due to sickness, and, I would recommend that Mr. Chris Walford take her place. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Henline, have a second. Second by Ms. Walker. Discussion. Roll call.
Inline. Yes. Kennedy. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Simpson absent. Brandon.
Item number 5 is consideration of mayor's appointment of Mr. Chris Walford to the Codes Enforcement Board of Appeals. Obviously, both these,
Yes.
both of these boards take very little time, and Mr. Walford agreed to serve on both as well, and I would recommend him to that position.
So moved, Mayor.
Motion, Mr. Henline, have a second.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Discussion. Roll call.
Inline. Kennedy. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Simpson absent. Brandon.
Item number 6, consideration of city council regarding filling 2 vacancies in the police department. Chief White.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we currently still have three positions available in the police department. I've got 2 recommendations tonight for 2 gentlemen that went through the whole process to get us to this point. I don't know if we need to take these separately.
Probably,
I
sir.
would.
So the first gentleman is Jesse Robinson, and it would be my recommendation that we hire him tonight for a full-time position in the police department.
Okay, Chairman Shields, you said as the chairman of that committee, is that your recommendation?
Yes, sir. The committee can recommend that we go on.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Mr. Shields makes a motion, we hire Mr. Robinson, second Mr. Brandon. Discussion. Roll call.
Inline. Kennedy. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Simpson absent. Brandon.
Go ahead, Chief.
Second is Spencer Tatham, would be the second recommendation.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion, Mr. Brandon.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Discussion. Roll call.
Inline. Kennedy. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Simpson absent. Brandon.
Thanks, Chief.
And you'll be
Appreciate it.
getting us their start dates, correct?
That is correct. I will notify them tomorrow. They'll be turning in their notices, and then I'll get that to you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Item number 7 is consideration of city council regarding cancellation of the Monday, February 13, 2022 council meeting. Several of us is going to be out of town, and I don't think we'll have enough people here for a quorum, so I would recommend to cancel it.
Motion.
A motion by the Vice Mayor, to have a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Brandon. Discussion. Roll call.
Inline. Kennedy. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Simpson absent. Brandon.
All right, number 8, discussion concerning the legal annexation of the following properties: WNW Properties LLC, care of Dan Smith and Bell West Point LLC. Let me say this, and certainly appreciate, again, the county commission, the county mayor coming and listening to the other sides of the story, and certainly the good folks out there as well. I will disagree with some of the comments that have been made. Lenoir City is not land grab anything. We was asked by the Bell West Properties, obviously that was annexed 2 years ago, and I'm gonna bring your attention to something that you may or may not be aware of. Back in 2007, when Lenoir City condemned some properties out there belonging to the Ross family to put in a water tank to serve some of you all that's out in that area, along with many others. So a lawsuit occurred in circuit court in 2007. And I don't have those months here, but we've got the paperwork. Be happy to furnish you with any of those copies. So a lawsuit occurred, it was settled in 2007. In 2007, as well, the road was taken in out there inside the city limits, and that was part of the lawsuit, that the city would annex the roadway. And I was on city council then when that happened. And I don't remember any controversy about the water tank or someone telling us not to put it in, other than the Ross family that was concerned that their property was being condemned. But LCUV needed that property at that time for the elevation to serve the citizens out there. So that was done, and then in 2007 as well, as part of that agreement, the Loudoun County Planning Commission, I'm gonna call him the director, I don't know what they call him now, but the Loudoun County Planning Commission director sent a letter to Lenoir City, and I'm sure he was in on part of the discussion at that time, that property could be annexed. Obviously, in my opinion, that property adjoins the road that was annexed inside the corporate limits back in 2007. So therefore, I think that property is legally annexed. And there's many other things that I won't get into. I'm gonna leave it to the loggers, but I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out that when the notice was ran on the WNW property, you know, you can call Mr. Vale's paper what you will, but it's a legal paper of publication, and he has an attorney general opinion of that. That's been tried before. The county commissioner at that time, Mr. Shaver, knew that was coming up before city council. He sent an email to Ms. Kelso, and there was some emails that went back and forth, and that was on the agenda. Mr. Smith came before the planning commission and went through the proper procedures, and it was properly advertised. It was on the city's website, and so there's nobody trying to hide anything then or now, but I wanted to say that and not try and throw anybody under the bus. I'm just telling you how it is, and that everybody went through the proper procedure, and we believe, and the city attorneys believe that it was properly annexed after looking at everything. But I'm going at this time turn it over to Mr. Walter Johnson, the city attorney, and then co-counsel Scott Jones is here, and he's going to speak afterwards. And then I'm going to let, I know Mr. Smith has his attorney, Mr. Jim Price is here, and Ed Owens is here for Bell West Properties as well, so he'll be the last one to speak, okay? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm not as tall as everybody else up here. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight, and I want to thank you. I haven't had a chance to do this in public since I was appointed in September the 1st, 2022. To thank you and City Council for allowing me to be the city attorney. It's been a great honor for me. I can't tell you how great it's been, because, you know, I get to work here in city government, and understand, I had no idea. I knew people, but I had no idea how it worked. I didn't know, couldn't see people and how it worked in here. But let me tell you something. Ms. Amber Scott Kelso, our city administrator, does a great job. She's on top of everything. It's incredible, the job that she does for this city. Maggie and LaVon, they work their tail off for our city, as does Don White and his police department and fire department. So we're here, Amanda and Sabrina in city court, Shelley and our finance department. They work like crazy, and not only have demonstrated competence, but ladies and gentlemen, they have demonstrated excellence. And it is an honor for me to be able to work with them as much as I do. I love coming over here. I understand the Judge, and I got to thank Judge Harrison for working real hard and getting elected so I could be in this job. So I want to talk a little bit about, that's one of the things that's happened here. As I saw the last two county commission meetings on YouTube, we get this overheated rhetoric, there's only one side and this and that. And you would think, listening to it, that there's a war between Lenoir City and Loudoun County. And there could not be anything further from the truth. There is a great deal of cooperation between Lenoir City and Loudoun County. If you don't believe me, look around, look right in front of you. You see that wall in front of you? That didn't exist until about a month ago when County Commissioner Will Jenkins spent the weekend and built it, along with these witness boxes. Now, why did he go to trouble to do that? Well, it's our city court. This is our city courtroom, and it needed to be a city court. But the precipitating factor of why it had to be done then was, guess what? Loudoun County does not have a courthouse. You probably weren't aware of that. Actually, they don't, and you know that. And they can't try jury cases in the Alma Street little courthouse, it used to be city court for Loudoun. Jury cases are tried in this courtroom. That's why we've got that wall built there. That's why we have the court reporter box here. We have the witness box there. These tables were set facing each other when you came in and set up the courtroom today for city council. They had to be moved back because they are set for a jury trial. You see all these chairs where these people are sitting? There were 12 of them, 13 actually. 13 chairs, well why? That's the jury. Judge Harrison set that up. Now that's cooperation, but that's not all. The county clerk's got an office in here, doesn't he? Cooperation in law enforcement. The county sheriff, our chief of police, work very closely together. 9th Judicial Drug Task Force, the Attorney General's office, all Loudoun, great cooperation. Schools, school children go back and forth between the city schools and the county schools. So it's just simply not true that there's a war going on. We do have a dispute. Now, we're here to talk about a legal annexation. And the reason I say illegal is that, again, we have this loose rhetoric. Illegal annexations. Void annexations. Well, let me tell you something. Any lawyer will tell you, Ed, Jim Price here representing WNW, they'll tell you nothing is illegal until a court says it is. You can name it whatever you want to. As my old taxation professor, Durwood Jones, I don't know how many of you had Durwood, used to say, you can write promissory note on a cow. That don't make it a promissory note. It's still a cow. You can name it what you want. We say it's legal. Why? Well, let's talk about it. We have two annexations, and they are different. They are similar, but they are different. Because what happened at the county commission meeting in December, county commission voted to have council contact the city in regard to the annexation of the WNW properties. So you can imagine our surprise when I got a letter dated December 21st from Mr. Kyle Baisley, I believe is in the back there as well. Good to see you, Kyle. When I got a letter from him referencing not only the WNW properties, but Bell West Point. What? When did that happen? When did county commission authorize that? But we dealt with it, and we're going to talk about it. Bell West Point is completely different from WNW. One of the reasons is what the mayor just outlined. But the other reason is, it's almost 3 years ago. It was in May of 2020. We're now almost at the end of January 2023. So that puts the posture of that in a lot different category. But both of those are similar in the situation that, one, there was a request by the landowner to the city through an application. And by the way, I didn't mention Beth upstairs in plans, and she does a great job. I meant to, and I'm telling you, she is on top of this as well. And she gets these applications. They both were filed there, requesting annexation by the city. City didn't run out there having the land grab, say, hey, we're gonna grab up all we can. That's where that came from. They requested it. It then went to the Planning Commission. Bell West Point filed an application February of 2020. March of 2020, it went to the Planning Commission. In May of 2020, it was approved by this city council after 2 readings. The ordinance of plans and services had to be first reading, second reading. The second reading of that was on the same night that the resolution for annexation was approved. Now, similar process occurred in regard to the W&W properties. Applications filed, I believe that was in August of this year. September, it goes to the Planning Commission. October is the first reading. November is the second reading, and the resolution of annexation. All in the ordinary course of business. Now they say, well, that's void. And by the way, for those of you that are interested, this 3-year annexation with Bell West Point, as I understand it, and Mr. Owens can correct me on this, I believe they've got about $11 million in that project currently. And if we set aside that annexation, somebody's going to have to pay. And that is in our legal power. As you know, everybody here, I'm sure, well, I'm not sure everybody, but most people here know I was in the public defender's office for 25 years. Criminal defense lawyer. We didn't really talk about contracts, municipalities, and annexations very much. It didn't really come up that much. So things rattling around in my head about these chancery court issues. One is economic waste. The plan, as I understand it from county commission, was to just let it go fallow. Just say, well, what's going to happen to the property? Well, nothing. $11 million down the drain. LCUB has an incredible investment in that development. It's gone. Now, who pays for that? If LCUB has to eat a big charge, who's going to pay for LCUB's charge? They're not going to just eat it. It's going to be the ratepayers. And that's everybody in here is going to pay. But this is not a political issue, is it? It's a legal issue. Well, let's talk about legals. We say, or they say, that this is void. From the beginning, it has to be set aside. Well, I didn't see any authority for that. I got about a 3.5-page letter from Mr. Baisley last week outlining all the mistakes we made. I think Mr. Rio, I'm sorry, sir, I can't remember your name, but you did a great job of outlining it. A lot of the things that they were talking about that Mr. Baisley outlined in his letter, it's the same thing. There's a problem, though, when you go to court, you have to do certain things. Now, there's basically 2 ways things happen in court, and I know I'm running a little long, but I apologize for that. I hope it hasn't been too uninteresting, but there's 2 things that happen. 1, process. That is, does the plaintiff have the right process? And then 2, the merits. If you don't have the process, you never get to the merits of the case. Now that's just simple, everybody understands that. You've gotta get, I mean, you see the horror stories coming out all the time, like some evil insurance company lures a plaintiff into not doing anything till after the statute of limitations is run. Well, they're gonna pay up till that date, that statute runs, now the insurance company ain't gonna pay a nickel. Guy had a great case on the merits, but he was too late. Didn't work, he lost, no case. So you have to comply with the process. Well, now, what does that mean in this case? One, Loudoun County does not have standing. Standing is a very important issue on process. As I recall from my old days with Durwood Jones, Jim Kirby at the University of Tennessee Law School. What does it mean, standing? Standing means you've got to be hurt specifically. That you've got to have an injury. Now, Murillo, he might have one. He might have that injury. Loudoun County, no. It's got to be more than some generalized harm. Bad government is not harm. Alleged land grab by Lenoir City, that's not harm. Loudoun County has no injury, no specific injury by Loudoun County. No standing. But it gets better than that. The statute, annexation, is a creature of the legislature. It is all statutory. The annexation statutes tell you who can sue and how to sue. They tell you. It's a suit in nature of quo warranto. Right? Yeah, I'm not sure I know what that means either. But that's what it is. Quo warranto. Well, guess what? Filed by the involved landowner, in which case would be W&W Properties or Bell West Point, well, they're not going to file. They requested it. Or, in some cases, an adjacent landowner. Not the county that the property resides in. They're not in the statute as able to bring a suit under quo warranto. They don't have standing. And the suit has to be filed prior to, pay attention, the operative date of the ordinance. Wow, what does that mean? Well, the cases say that the operative date of the ordinance, in this case, November the 14th was when the ordinance passed. The operative date, according to the cases, is 30 days. It has to be filed within 30 days of the ordinance. Don't worry about what? That was November, December, January. 2 months past that, right? We're January 23rd. Had to be filed by December the 14th. They're out. Wasn't filed in time. Now, how does that apply to one that was done 3 years ago? That's utterly ridiculous. 3 years ago? It had to be filed in 30 days. If you say, well, maybe it wasn't, it didn't have to do that. For some reason you could wiggle around. No, that doesn't work. But let's say that by some miracle, they did get past that. And you could get past the 30-day requirement. And that I'm wrong, that Johnson's opinion on that just absolutely wrong. Well, let me tell you what I'm right about. There's a doctrine in the law called latches. Oh my God, what is that? That means you sit on your rights, you lose them. You can't wait 3 years to enforce an agreement, to bring something up that you could have brought before that. Particularly in the cases hold this, if there's economic harm. Wow, what does that mean? It means if Bell West Point's got $11 million in this project, then Loudoun County is guilty of latches and not bringing it up before now. You wanna bring up an agreement from 2005? That annexation was done in 2020. It should have been brought up before now. You can't let them get $11 million into the project and say, oh, yeah, well, you know, hey, just set it aside. That's ridiculous. All right, now let's process. I think they're out. They lose on the merits too. I want to bring up this agreement from 2005. Well, let me tell you in a nutshell, and I'll try to be as brief as I can, why that agreement isn't enforceable. The first thing is, the statute for annexations changed in 2015. Which really, when you talk about this land grab that we heard about, it's impossible now under the statute because all annexations have to be by request. They're going to have to come and ask you to do it. So that doesn't, and this bogeyman of Lenoir City's going to go out, or Loudoun City, or Philadelphia, Greenback, they're just going to go out and take up all this land. It ain't going to happen. They can't. But the statute that governed that agreement at the time has been changed substantially so that it's non-operative, in our opinion. The next thing is, it's against public policy to enforce it. What? Public policy? Okay. Well, let's see what that means. What we say is, Mayor Brookshire, in 2005, when he entered into that agreement approved by City Council, was an executive and a legislative branch of Lenoir City government in 2005. Now, Loudoun County's position is that that is going to tie the hands of Mayor Akins and this City Council of Lenoir City in 2023, 18 years later, and theoretically would bind Lenoir City forever. That does not work. It violates public policy. What do you mean? A legislative group cannot, in our opinion, again, subject to a lawsuit. I guess it would be side two for those that only think there's one side. We're talking about side two now, and members in the back. The reason it can't be enforced is a legislature in 2005 cannot bind a future legislature. Think about it. Now, how would that work? Well, let's say you have a political disagreement. You lose the election. You got a whole new group coming in, and you disagree with what they're getting ready to do. What do? Do you go and get a contract with another legislature that agrees with you? You sign that up so that they can't do what they campaigned on doing? What the elected members of City Council were to do? They run for election. They promise to represent the people of Lenoir City. That contract violates public policy. Now, if you think, well, that's ridiculous. Well, let me tell you something. There's a lot of things that violate public policy, right? We know that in contracts of adhesion violate public policy. They're not enforced. We know that penalty clauses in contracts are not enforced. Liquidated damages are, but penalty clauses are not. This violates public, and by the way, gambling contracts in Tennessee are not enforced either. This violates public policy, and it's out. The next thing is, and pretty easy here, they've abandoned it. Both parties have abandoned the contract. The first time anybody hears about it is 2022. December or November of 2022, before anybody even knows about it. Here, it's existed since 2005. How many annexations do you suppose have gone on since 2005? A lot. Has it ever been mentioned before? Has anybody ever tried to say, hey, listen, we've got an agreement, don't do that? Never. And moreover, in 2020, It was never mentioned. They abandoned it. We abandoned it. Probably everybody forgot about it. Until now we dug it out, so, oh, got an agreement. I'm sorry, Mayor, for running a little long.
No, I want to get it out. I want everybody to hear everything.
That agreement isn't worth the paper it's written on today. That was pretty good back in 2005, but it's worth nothing. Now, let's talk about the statute. You violated the statute. Now, what do they say the violations were? Okay, they say that the statute says that it had to be a landowner requests that owns property in the city next to the property they want annexed. They have to have a plan of services. 3 requirements. The statute says requirement 1, then it says requirement 2 and 3. Wow. How do you read that? Do you read it like you have to do all 3 of them? Or do you read it like you have to do 1 or 2 and 3? Now that's a question of statutory construction. That's also side 2, by the way, for the violation on that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. See, Miss Askew's made it. Well, see, that'd be up to a court. But let me tell you what. They say in requirement 3, as the homeowner or the property owner has to file a sworn request, has to be sworn to. Well, our form that was signed says you attest that that's true and correct. Doesn't say, I here swear that it's true and correct. I attest to it. Now, I don't know what the difference between attesting and swearing is in terms of a document. But it's pretty close to the same, and it gets to the same, when I say this, I mean this sincerely, it gets to the same issue that requirement addresses, which is, it can't be fraudulent. You can't get somebody to come in and ask for something unless it's the person that's asking for it. And they have to certify that it's them. Now, is there any doubt that Dan Smith requested that? That the Ross family requested that annexation? There ain't any question about that. So they're going to lose on those points, on the merits of the case. They're going to lose on that. So in conclusion, let me just say this. I am not going to try to usurp the authority of this city council. They decide everything. It is a political decision that they have to make on what to do in this matter. I can only make my recommendation. My recommendation is to fight. Fight them down to the dirt. They're wrong. Totally and completely wrong. If they want to sue us, we're ready. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'll ask Mr. Scott Jones to come up for his comments.
Honorable Mayor, members of council, and I'll tell you, a hard act to follow there. I almost feel like we ought to pass an offering plate. I was moved, but you know, a lot of the things that Mr. Johnson are making, they're very valid points. I wasn't involved in this from the beginning, but had an opportunity to look. And one of the things that we all know is true is that the only constant is change. And that being said, you cannot stay back in your staid ways and not recognize that both Loudoun County and in particular under the supervision of you as members of council and you, Mayor, Lenoir City has grown, has expanded, and is a thriving community. And when we look at this issue and we get these, if you will, complaints relative to annexation, and you look back at actually what does constitute the legal precedent relative to the same, you look at the fact that this agreement entered into by former Mayor Brookshire back in 2007, you know, when you look at the actual terms of it and you look at the ceding of control by one municipality to effectively an encompassing county, I think it's void ab initio. I don't think it would have ever passed muster even as it existed at that point in time. But then when you couple that with the agreement with the Ross heirs, and we're talking about the Bell West property, we look at this agreement relative to this property, and you look particularly on page 12 of that agreement, I would assume someone from the county has taken the time to actually examine the agreement that exists relative to it, and I'm going to quote, it says, however, the Ross heirs and or their successors and or their assigns are free to request annexation of the subject property or any portion thereof into the city of Lenoir City prior to that time if they so desire. And that's what happened. That's literally what happened, and that's signed off on not only by the city, but by representatives of the county as well, relative to that agreement that is entered into. And then when you look at this, bringing up this old resolution back in 2005, I think it is literally void ab initio, but you know the other constant is our legislature constantly changes the law. You know, we get our updates in the TCA, Tennessee Code Annotated, and you look at Public Chapter 707, and you look at the fact that the law substantively changed basically when that law passed in April of 2014. I think the actions of Lenoir City and the annexation were not only in complying with the spirit, but with the letter of the law relative to the annexation process that was conducted on both the Bell West property and the WMW property. And then we've got the situation where we don't have, if you will, a situation. I sort of equate it to the three little pigs, you know. I'm gonna huff and I'm gonna puff and I'm gonna blow your house down, you know. And it's a bully. It's I'm gonna blow your house down. I'm gonna do this unless you quote unquote de-annex. I've never heard of that in my life, a de-annexation with regards to the property, but it's a threat, but it is a threat without merit. And in particularly, it is a threat without merit, and Mr. Johnson sort of hit on it right at the very beginning with regards to the fact that Loudoun County, and anybody that was there with Loudoun County, they were asleep at the switch, so to speak. If they had a complaint, they had 30 days to bring that complaint. They failed to bring that complaint. We have a doctrine under the law. We have the rules of civil procedure, which we practice under. And we are all tasked to understand those as members of the bar. And there's a particular provision there, and it's called 12.026, right? And it is a motion that is brought when a lawsuit is brought without merit, and it says that it is a motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim. And when a circumstance exists wherein, in this particular case, the county has let the statute, so to speak, run with regards to the timeliness of their filing, and by any stretch of the imagination, the Bell West, that statute's gone. I mean, we don't have to talk about latches, it's just flat gone. But the provision of that is, if they bring a lawsuit and they chose to do so, then under 12026, not only are you entitled to redress, i.e. the dismissal of the cause of action, but you're entitled to your attorney's fees and the cost and expenses. And I will tell you that it will be expensive to litigate this. And I heard the mayor say this earlier relative to this, and obviously has this public forum that is available for folks to air their grievances and speak relative to this. Honest to God, it's like a divorce. The only people that make money out of it, and God forbid it's my profession, out of lawsuits, are attorneys. And you know who loses? The taxpayers lose. The Loudoun County taxpayers lose, the Lenoir City taxpayers lose, and under this set of circumstances, it may very well be the Loudoun County taxpayers lose twice, because they're going to be responsible, in my opinion, for the fees associated with this under that 12026 doctrine, because that being said, they've been asleep at the switch, they've been dilatory in their actions, and it is evolved, and there has been a constant change. So I would echo the sentiments of Mr. Johnson relative to that. I would recommend not only that you continue to work cooperatively as been outlined with Loudoun County, but to the extent that you're going to allow somebody to puff and blow your house down, you didn't build it out of straw, you didn't build it out of sticks, it's built out of bricks here. And there's a reason that you just say no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, appreciate it. All right, Mr. Price, do you have anything to say?
Mr. Mayor, given Bell West Point's money that they've already put into their project, I think it's only appropriate that they get a chance to speak first, and then I'll be.
Okay. Ms. Askew?
Go ahead and speak after.
Sorry, I didn't see you come in earlier.
That's okay. I'm kind of hard to miss, but you know. I'm Robin Askew. I'm a lawyer at Lewis Thomas in Knoxville, 620 Market Street. I appreciate everything that Mr. Johnson and Mr. Jones have said and concur. A couple of things that I do want to point out is that my client, who is Bell West Point, is in a unique situation. As you have so aptly stated, this was on your planning commission agenda, it was on your city council agenda. Those are public forums. What's on your agenda is published every time you meet. There were opportunities to be heard and to dissent from the actions that were being contemplated. So I am just appalled, frankly, at the fact that this has been almost 3 years and this is coming up at this point. In fact, I'm curious as to whether Blount County has been receiving an increased tax base from this annexation. It's been that long. And I know that when the property was acquired, that's going to go into your tax rolls at a higher rate.
You meant Loudoun County, right?
I'm sorry, I say that every time. I'm in a lawsuit in
I know,
Blount County
that's
too.
all right.
In Loudoun County, yes, thank you, sir. And so I wonder whether they've actually taken those taxes at a higher rate. Do they have to give them back? So this de-annexation, I don't understand what that means. It's not, Mr. Jones so aptly said, it's not a word I know. Statutorily, there is a section on contraction. And if you do want to contract it, 100% of you have to agree that it will be contracted. So again, we're in a statutory scheme. And if 100% of you agree, then a majority of the voters who reside in the property to be contracted have to agree. We're not going to agree to that. So the statute can't be met. And there are obviously a lot of dollars at stake here. And I totally agree. I like the word latches. I don't get to use it very much, but I appreciate that and totally concur with the city's position. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Jim Price. I've been retained, and our firm has been retained by W&W Properties, and in fact by its chief manager, Dan Smith, to represent its interests here before the council and with regard to any action that may arise from the, at least the words of the county that we've received so far. As Ms. Askew so poignantly said, what Mr. Johnson and Mr. Jones have laid out for the council and for the community says what the county should understand and what the law is. And I won't regurgitate that for you. It's clear that what the council did was appropriate. It was done the right way. There was nothing wrong with what the city did. For the county now to take the position after this amount of time has passed that there was something wrong is frankly frivolous. And I just want the council to know that Mr. Smith had advised me that I can let the commission know that if the county takes any action that would impact W&W's property, that W&W stands ready to go shoulder to shoulder with the council, and I suspect with Bell West as well, to defend vigorously, and I cannot emphasize that enough, vigorously, to defend the rights that W&W has to its property. And so we would simply ask that the council let the county know that the city is not going to set aside what it has already done because it was done appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Price, appreciate it. I know Mr. Baisley is back there, I don't know if he wants to speak or not, certainly. Mr. Baisley,
No, Mr. Mayor.
thanks, sir, for being here, appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You've heard the city's case, I guess, but, or part of it anyhow. But, again, I want to, thank, the county mayor and some members of the county commission for being here. And, wanted you to hear everything that we've been hearing. And hopefully, we want to continue to work together. As I told, one of the, news media outlets today, we certainly don't want to drive a wedge between city and county governments. I think we all have a hard enough time as it is. And certainly we want to be fair to the people as well. And I believe it's properly done. If city council says any differently, please tell me. But I just think that we should move on from this. And of course, certainly county commission and the county mayor has their own opinion, and that'll be decided February the 6th, from what I've heard. And Mr. Johnson touched on this. When the courthouse burned, I was the first one along with city council to extend our hand out and ask, hey, do you need a courtroom? We'll be happy to help you. Buddy Bradshaw and I had discussions about it. And, of course, I talked with the Attorney General, talked with the criminal court judge. They came up, looked at it, we made accommodations. Even now, with the work that's been done, if they have a trial and you all know my background, law enforcement, and I feel like that the victims of this county has the right for their case to be heard and come to court, and I strongly feel that they do, and that's the reason that we offered up this place for those people
At no
to be able to come in at no charge, to be able to come in and state their case and bring those criminals to trial and the victims to have some closure in their life. And even now, I know the lawyers know this, can things happen and cases, instead of getting continued or pleading out, they'll call at the last minute and saying, oh, we need your courtroom. Our clerks go to the extreme in resetting the city cases with cooperation of the city judge and resets those cases where criminal court can come in and use the courtroom. So I, for one, certainly don't want to wedge between the city and county governments. I think the people loses when that happens. And as Mr. Jones states, I've talked about and said many times, only the lawyers will win, the taxpayers will lose, regardless of what the court does. And Lenoir City and Loudon City, as we all know, we pay county taxes along with our city taxes. So it'll be a loser for the taxpayers, and I certainly hope the county commission will take a strong, hard look at it and decide not to go the lawsuit route. With that being said, I'll open it up to city council. If you have anything you want to add, or I'll entertain that, or a motion, or whatever you want to do at this time. Anyone? All right, being no further business, is there anyone here that'd like to comment on something that was not on tonight's agenda? Vaughn?
Yes, I was just wanting to make you all aware that the civil service employees met on January the 12th. We have a vacancy on that board. It was for the employee representative. And so the employees voted unanimously to fill that position with Ms. Tammy Powell. And I believe she is here tonight. I don't know if she's still here.
Yes, she's here.
We felt like she would be a great fit for that, and we're happy to have her.
All right, and that does not take council action, that's between the employees.
Excellent choice.
That's right, thank you.
Ms. Kelso.
Thank you, Mayor. I did just want to say I agree with all that you said. I want to thank City Attorney Walter Johnson. I want to thank T. Scott Jones for their comments tonight, as well as Robin Askew and Mr. Price. You know, just echoing what you've said about what we do for the county, you know, we also take county taxes, lots of those taxes. Two of our city clerks, which is all that we have in the finance office, they take those taxes. And, you know, we do car tags here for county residents. So there are a lot of services that our city building does for the county residents. And we do that at no charge. And so we don't want to break that relationship that we have with them. So hopefully we can come to some sort of agreement here. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Kelso. Anyone else? Any member of City Council? Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
I'd like to make that motion to approve all bills and accounts to be paid when properly approved and the funds are available.
Ms. Walper makes a motion, we pay the bills. Have a second.
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor. Discussion. Roll call, Mr. Wilkie.
Inline. Aye. Kennedy. Aye. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Simpson absent. Brandon.
Aye.
Got a motion we adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn, Mayor.
Motion, Mr. Hammond, have a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Brandon. Discussion. Roll call, Mr. Wilkie.
Inline. Aye. Kennedy. Aye. Wampler.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Simpson absent. Brandon.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you all.
All right.